Hello, I'm Maisie, and I am Miss Smith's daughter. I'll be reading Chapter 2, The Vanishing Glass. Nearly 10 years had passed since the Dursleys had woken up to find their nephew on the front step, but Privet Drive had hardly changed at all. The sun rose on the same tidy front gardens and lit up the brass number 4 on the Dursleys' front door. It crept into the living room, which was almost exactly the same as it had been on the night when Mr. Dursley had seen that fateful news report about the owls. Only the photographs on the mantelpiece really showed how much time had passed. 10 years ago, there had been lots of pictures of what looked like a large pink beach ball wearing a different coloured bonnets. But Dudley Dursley was no longer a baby. Now the photographs showed a large blond boy picking his first bicycle on a carousel at the park, playing a computer game with his father, being hugged and kissed by his mother. The room had no signs at all that another boy lived in the house too. Yet, Harry Potter was still there, asleep at the moment, but not for long. His Aunt Petunia was awake, and it was her shrill voice that made the first noise of the day. "Up! Get up! Now!" Harry woke with a start. His aunt rapped on the door again. "Up!" she screeched. Harry heard her walking toward the kitchen, and then the sound of the frying pan being put on the stove. He rolled onto his back and tried to remember the dream he had been having. It had been a good one. There had been a flying motorcycle on it. He had a funny feeling he'd had the same dream before. His aunt was back outside the door. "Are you up yet?" she demanded. "Nearly," said Harry. "Well, get and move on. I want you to look after the bacon, and don't you dare let it burn. I want everything perfect on Dudley's birthday." Harry groaned. "What did you say?" his aunt snapped through the door. Nothing. Dudley's birthday. How could you have forgotten?" Harry got slowly out of his bed and started looking for socks. He found a pair under his bed, and after pulling a spider off one of them, put them on. Harry was used to spiders, because the cupboard under the stairs was full of them, and that's where he slept. When he was dressed, he went down the hall into the kitchen. The table was almost hidden behind all Dudley's birthday presents. It looked as though Dudley had gotten the new computer that he wanted, not to mention the second television and the racing bike. Exactly why Dudley wanted a racing bike was a mystery to Harry, as Dudley was so fat and hated exercise, unless, of course, it involved punching somebody. Dudley's favourite punching bag was Harry, but he couldn't often catch him. Harry didn't look it, but he was very fast. Perhaps it had something to do with living in a dark cupboard. But Harry had always been small and skinny for his age. He looked even smaller and skinnier than he really was, because all he had to wear were old clothes of Dudley's, and Dudley was about 4 times bigger than he was. Harry had a thin face, knobby knees, black hair, and bright green eyes. He wore red round glasses held together with a lot of Scotch tape because of all the times Dudley had punched him on the nose. The only thing Harry liked about his own appearance was a very thin scar on his forehead that was shaped like a bolt of lightning. He had it as long as he could remember, and the first question he could ever remember asking his Aunt Petunia was how he had gotten it. "In the car crash when your parents died," she said, and "don't ask questions." Don't ask questions. That was the first rule for a quiet life with the Dursleys. Uncle Vernon entered the kitchen as Harry was turning over the bacon. Comb your hair," he barked, by way of a morning greeting. About once a week, Uncle Vernon looked over the top of his newspaper and shouted that Harry needed a haircut. Harry must have had more haircuts than the rest of the boys in his class put together. But it made no difference. His hair simply grew that way all over the place. Harry was frying eggs by the time Dudley arrived in the kitchen with his mother. Dudley looked a lot like Uncle Vernon. He had a large pink face, not much neck, small watery blue eyes, and thick blonde hair that lay smoothly on his thick, fat head. Aunt Petunia often said that Dudley looked like a baby angel. Harry often said that Dudley looked like a pig in a wig. Harry out the plates of eggs and bacon on the table, which was difficult as it wasn't much room. Dudley, meanwhile, was counting his presents. His face fell. 36, he said, looking up at his mother and father. That's 2 less than last year. Darling, you haven't counted Auntie Marge's present. See, it's here, under the big one, from Mom and Dad. All right, 37 then, said Dudley, going red in the face. Harry, who could see a huge Dudley tantrum coming on, began wolfing down his bacon as fast as possible, in case Dudley turned the table over. Aunt Petunia obviously scented danger too, because she said quickly, "And we'll buy you another 2 presents while we're out today. How's that, Pumpkin? 2 more presents, is that all right?" Dudley thought for a moment. It looked like hard work. Finally he said slowly, "So, I'll have 39, sweetums," said Aunt Petunia. "Oh." Dudley sat down heavily and grabbed the nearest parcel. "All right, then." Uncle Vernon chuckled. "A little tyke wants his money worth, just like his father. Aren't you, boy, Dudley?" He ruffled Dudley's hair. At the moment the telephone rang, and Aunt Petunia went to answer it, while Harry and Uncle Vernon watched Dudley unwrap the racing bike video camera, a remote control airplane, 16 new computer games, and a VCR. He was ripping the paper off a gold wristwatch when Aunt Petunia came back from the telephone, looking both angry and worried. "Bad news, Vernon," she said. "Miss Figg's broken her leg. She can't take him." She jerked her head in Harry's direction. Dudley's mouth fell open in horror. But Harry's heart gave a leap. Every year on Dudley's birthday, his parents took him and a friend out for the day to adventure parks, hamburger restaurants, or the movies. Every year, Harry was left behind with Miss Figg, a mad old lady who lived 2 streets away. Harry hated it there. The whole house smelled of cabbage, and Miss Figg made him look at photographs of the old cats she ever owned. "Now what?" said Aunt Petunia, looking furiously at Harry as though he'd planned this. Harry knew he ought to feel sorry that Miss Figg had broken her leg, but it wasn't easy when he reminded himself it would be the whole year before he had to look at Dibbles, Snowy, Miss Paws, and Tuffy again. "We can phone Marge," Uncle Vernon suggested. "Don't be silly, Vernon. She hates the boy." The Dursleys often spoke about Harry like this, as though he wasn't there, or rather, as though he was something very nasty, and that couldn't understand them, like a slug. "What about her name? Your friend, Yvonne." "On vacation," snapped Petunia. "You could just leave me here," Harry put it hopefully. He'd be able to watch what he'd wanted on television for a change, and maybe even have a go on Dudley's computer. Aunt Petunia looked as though she'd just swallowed a lemon. "You come back and find the house in ruins?" she snarled. "I won't blow up the house," said Harry, but they weren't listening. "I suppose we could take him to the zoo," said Aunt Petunia. "And leave him in the car?" That car's new. He's not sitting in it alone." Dudley began to cry loudly. In fact, he wasn't really crying. It had been years since he'd really cried. But he knew that if he screwed up his face and wailed, his mother would give him anything he wanted. "Dinky Duddledums, don't cry! Mummy wouldn't let him spoil your special day," she cried, flinging her arms around him. I don't want him to come," Dudley yelled, between huge pretend sobs. He always spoils everything." Sorry. He shot Harry a nasty grin through the gap in his mother's arm. Just then the door rang. "Oh, God, Mom, they're here!" said Aunt Petunia frantically, and a moment later Dudley's best friend, Pierce Bulkis, walked in with his mother. Pierce was a scrawny boy with a face like a rat. He was usually the one who held people's arms behind their backs while Dudley hit them. Dudley stopped pretending to cry at once. Half an hour later, Harry, who couldn't believe his luck, was sitting in the back of the Dursleys' car with Pierce and Dudley, on the way to go to the zoo for the first time in his life. His aunt and uncle hadn't been able to think of anything else to do with him. But before they had left, Uncle Vernon had taken Harry aside. "I'm warning you," he said, putting his large, purple face right up close to Harry's. "I'm warning you, boy. Any funny business, anything at all, and you'll be in that cupboard from now until Christmas." "I'm not going to do anything," said Harry. "Honestly." But Uncle Vernon didn't believe him. No one ever did. The problem was, strange things often happened around Harry, and it was just no good telling the Dursleys he didn't make them happen. Once Aunt Petunia tired of Harry coming back from the balls looking as though he hadn't been at all, had taken a pair of kitchen scissors and cut his hair so short he was almost bald, except for his bangs, which he left to hide that horrible scar. Dudley had laughed himself silly at Harry. He spent a sleepless night imagining school the next day, where he'd always laugh at for his baggy clothes and taped glasses. Next morning, however, he'd gotten up to find his hair exactly as it had been before. He had been given a week in his cupboard for this, even though he tried to explain that he couldn't explain how it had gone back so quickly. Another time, Aunt Petunia had been trying to force him into a revolting old sweater. The harder she pushed, the smaller it seemed to get. On the other hand, he'd gotten into terrible trouble for being found on the roof of the school kitchens. Dudley's gang had been chasing him as usual when, much to Harry's surprise as anyone else's, there he was sitting on the chimney. But today, nothing was going to go wrong. It was even worth being with Dudley and Pierce to be spending the day somewhere that wasn't school, his cupboard, or Miss Figg's cabbage-smelling living room. When he drove, Uncle Vernon complained to Aunt Petunia. This morning it was motorcycles, roaring around like maniacs. "The young hoodlums," he said, as a motorcycle overtook him. "I had a dream about a motorcycle, Harry," said Harry, remembering suddenly. "It was flying." Uncle Vernon nearly crashed into the car in front of him. "Motorcycles don't fly!" Dudley and Pierce sniggered. "I know they don't," said Harry. "It was only a dream." But he wished he hadn't said anything. If there was only one thing the Dudleys hated even more than his questions, it was his talking about anything acting in a way it shouldn't. No matter if it was in a dream or even a cartoon, they seemed to think he might get dangerous ideas. It was a very sunny Saturday, and the zoo was crowded with families. Harry had the best morning he'd had in a long time. He was careful to walk a little way apart from the Dursleys so that Dudley and Pierce, who started to get bored with the animals by lunchtime, wouldn't fall back on their favourite hobby of hitting him. They ate in the zoo restaurant, and when Dudley had a tantrum because Knickerbocker Glory didn't have ice cream on top, Uncle Vernon bought him another one, and Harry was allowed to finish the first. Harry felt afterward that he should have known it was all too good to last. Bum, bum, bum. After lunch, they went to the reptile house. Dudley and Pierce wanted to see huge poisonous cobras and thick man-crushing pythons. Dudley quickly found the largest snake in the place. It could have wrapped its body twice around my Uncle Vernon's car and crushed it into a trash can. But at that moment, it didn't look like it was in the mood. In fact, it was asleep. Dudley stood with his nose pressed against the glass, staring at the glistening brown coils. "Make it move! Make it move!" he whined at his father. Uncle Vernon tapped on the glass, but the snake didn't budge. "Do it again!" Dudley ordered. He tapped again. "This is boring," Dudley moaned. He shuffled away. Harry moved in front of the tank and looked intently at the snake. He wouldn't have been surprised if it had died of boredom himself. No company except stupid people drumming their fingers on the glass, trying to disturb it all day long. It was worse than having a cupboard as a bedroom, where the only visitor was Aunt Petunia hammering on the door to wake up. At least he got to visit the rest of the house. The snake suddenly opened its beady eyes. Slowly, very slowly, it raised its head, until its eyes were on level with Harry's. It winked. That wasn't a wink. It's okay. Okay, Harry stared. Then he looked quickly to see if there's anyone else watching. It gave Harry a look that said quite plainly, I get that all the time. I know, Harry murmured through the glass, though he wasn't sure the snake could hear him. It must be really annoying. The snake nodded vigorously. Where do you come from anyway? Harry asked. The snake jabbed its tail at a little sign near the glass. Harry peered at it. Boa constrictor, Brazil. Was it nice there? The boa constrictor jabbed his tail on the sign again, and Harry read on. This specimen was brought in the zoo. Oh, I see. So you've never been to Brazil? As the snake shook its head, a deafening shout behind Harry made both of them jump. Dudley! Mr. Dursley! Come and look at the snake! You won't believe what it's doing! Dudley came waddling toward them as fast as he could. Out of the way, you! He said, punching Harry in the ribs. Caught by surprise, Harry fell hard on the concrete floor. What came next happened so fast, no one saw how it happened. 1 second, Pierce and Dudley were leaning right up close to the glass. The next, they leapt back with howls of horror. Harry sat up and gasped. The glass front of the boa constrictor's tank had vanished. The great snake was uncoiling itself rapidly, slithering out onto the floor. As the snake slid swiftly past him, Harry could have sworn a low hissing voice said, Brazil, here I come. Thanks, amigo. The keeper of the reptile house was in shock. But the glass, he kept saying. Where did the glass go? The zoo director himself made an opportunity a cup of strong sweet tea, while he apologized over and over again. Pierce and Dudley could only gibble. Gibble? Okay. As far as Harry had seen, the snake hadn't done anything, except snap playfully at their heels as it passed. But by the time they were all back in the car, Dudley was telling them how it had nearly bitten off his leg, while Pierce was swaying it and trying to squeeze him to death. But worst of all, for Harry at least, was Pierce's calming down enough to say, Harry was talking it, weren't you, Harry? Uncle Vernon waited until Pierce was safely out of the house. Go, cupboard, stay, no meals, before he collapsed into his chairs. Harry lay in his dark cupboard much later, wishing he had a watch. He didn't know what time it was, and he wasn't sure the Dursley was asleep yet. Till they were, he couldn't risk sneaking into the kitchen for some food. He lived with the Dursleys almost 10 years. 10 miserable years. As long as he could remember, ever since he had been a baby and his parents had died in that car crash, he couldn't remember being in the car when his parents had died. Sometimes, when he strained his memory during long hours in the cupboard, he came up with a strange vision. A blinding flash of green light and a burning pain on his forehead. This, he supposed, was the crash, though he couldn't imagine where the green light came from. Couldn't remember his parents at all. His uncle and aunt never spoke about them, and of course, he was forbidden to ask questions. There were no photographs of them in the house. When he had been younger, Harry had dreamed and dreamed of some unknown relation coming to take him away, but it had never happened. The Dursleys were his only family, yet sometimes he thought, maybe hoped, the strangers in the street seemed to know him. Very strange strangers they were, too. A tiny man in a violet top hat that bowed to him once while out shopping with Aunt Petunia and Dudley, and asking Harry furiously if he knew the man. Aunt Petunia had rushed them out of the shop without buying anything. A wild old woman dressed all in green had merrily waved to him at once at a bus. A bald man in a very long purple cape had actually shaken his hand in the street the other day, and then walked away without a reward. The weirdest thing about all these people was the way they seemed to vanish the second Harry tried to get a closer look. At school, Harry had no one. Everybody knew the Dudley's gang hated that old Harry Potter in his baggy old clothes and broken glasses, and nobody liked to disagree with Dudley's gang. Next chapter, is The Letters from No One. Thank you.